Oh, man.
Hey, Old Man on the Mat crew. This is Tony Jones coming at you with another great episode of Old Man on the Mat. Guys, I said it. I'm going to keep saying it. I'm fired up. Every day you wake up, take a good breath, or any breath is a good day. Life is good. Hey, before I jump in this, guys, thank you so much for all the support you guys have been giving on our platform. With our, podcast you're liking and sharing everything. We're on all the platforms, wherever you get all your podcasts. We're there. Thank you for the good feedback and some of the bad feedback. I ignore that anyway, but thanks anyway. And also, guys, thanks for all the merch you guys are buying. We do have new rash guards coming out. Everything's at oldmanonthemat.com, oldmanonthemat.com. So like I always say, guys, what we do is we try to talk to different people all over the place at different fitness levels, or people doing fitness training, martial artists, pickleballers, whatever it is. And our whole goal is to just reach people who are just, still active in life, still got the burn, not sitting on the couch all day. Even if they are, they're at least trying to get up, guys. But I'm fired up about this thing. Today, I'm really stoked. We have one of the world-renowned personal trainers out there. This guy's awesome. He specializes in helping old people. And that says a lot nowadays. I see a lot of old people, not in my age group because I'm very young. I'm still 32. No laughter? Nothing? Got it. All right. I'm still young, but I think it's really cool to see a lot of older people in, my age bracket still trying to stay active out there. Not a lot of people are just sitting around. I look at the gyms, everyone out there. And this guy, he specializes in sports performance. He's, we're going to jump into everything he does. So we're going to let Quintin tell you all about himself. But guys, listen up. This guy knows what he's doing. He has a great following out there. Guys, with that, I give you Quintin Torres. How you doing, brother?
Hey, how you doing?
Still alive, man. Still alive. But man, listen, I tell you, we talk real quick, and you say you specialize in helping older people, and I think that's really cool. I really do, man. I'm gonna bounce around a little bit, but real quick, what have you seen, especially in your profession, and what have you seen out there with a lot of your clientele? What's causing a lot of their injuries, or things they have that's keeping them from moving until they reach you?
Oh, that could be a lot to unpack, but maybe we can try to like unlayer this onion like one at a time.
Sounds good.
So I've done, martial arts, combat sports for over 10 years. And I've been involved in martial arts and jiu-jitsu and things like that since like the early 90s, like 1992. My dad lived in Redondo Beach back right in the same area when the Gracies first moved to the United States. And my dad did seminars in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at El Camino Community College, and my mom. So they were kind of hip to it all the way back in like 1984.
Wow.
I think they were, learning arm bars and stuff like that during the before UFC 1, before it really like took off.
Holy cow.
And my dad would always teach me triangle chokes, teach me arm bars, like in our living room floor. Since I was a kid, he'd always make me watch like UFC fights on VHS back when like Royce Gracie and Ken Shamrock would fight for like an hour and no one would win.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So this sport's kind of been a part of my life for a really long time. And I got involved with it right after college. So, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, everything. I competed, never went pro, but always just loved martial arts training. It's always it's always been my thing. And over the years, it's kind of gone through some evolutions, where like the early stages of martial arts, there was a lot of weightlifting, a lot of bodybuilding, and people would try to adapt those into martial arts training. And then it kind of moved more into heavy in the skill work side of things. Back when like UFC was actually back when wrestlers started showing up in the UFC. That's when I noticed everything was heavy skill based. And there was kind of a war between jiu-jitsu and wrestling back during Pride FC and when Matt Hughes was the welterweight champion.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that was like name of the game back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And when the Ultimate Fighter season 1 started coming out, that's when you really started people start mixing in functional training, kettlebell swings, battle ropes, long, slow runs, circuit training. And now it's kind of evolved. Now it's kind of up in the air. Right now, the sport is kind of a free-for-all when it comes to training methodologies because, of course, more money's been pumped into it, more money, and more capitalism means more evolution, means more specialists, more
Yeah.
attention, and you got all different types of training modalities. And to kind of get back to the question, is one thing that I've noticed that's been really affecting martial artists' longevity is that they're doing all these different training philosophies, and they're
Okay.
neglecting the number one aspect that comes to your longevity, and that's your feet.
Okay.
Yeah. So I use a car analogy that really helps people understand this, because anatomy is difficult. Like, understanding this stuff is not easy. So imagine your body's a car, right?
Mhm.
And you spent your whole life, like, you got a good body kit on the car, you got a great transmission, it's a V6, it's a V8, the exhaust is awesome. But imagine you take that really well souped up car, you put it on the track, and the tires are flat. How do you think the car is going to perform?
Poorly, extremely poorly.
Yeah, what's going to happen is that the rest of the car, the axle, the shocks, the frame, all these other parts of the car have to compensate for all this kinetic energy that it's trying to withstand and push. Now imagine, instead of a racetrack, it's martial arts, and instead of a car, it's your body. So
Ah,
what's going on is that, as a society, especially modern societies, Western European societies, have extremely atrophied feet.
okay.
We've been spending most of our lives in shoes. And as a culture, we're kind of afraid to expose our feet. We've always been told feet are dirty. Feet are,
Yeah.
it's rude. Like, don't show your feet. Like, whenever I train kids and I'd be like, all right, guys, take your shoes and socks off, they get really nervous exposing their feet. Well, we've
Wow.
kind of created like this weird sort of sensitivity to barefoot training. And, uh, as an example, whenever I'm training kids, the best kids, the quote unquote most talented, I've noticed that those kids that perform really well, that move really fast, and they accelerate over all the other kids, and they're less injured, have the strongest feet.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
It
Okay.
never fails. It never fails. And you'll see some kids who look kind of strong. They're naturally a little bit more muscular than the other kids, but
Yeah.
maybe they lack in quickness. They always have softness, dysfunction going on in their feet, cramping going on with their toes. They have weak feet, so the rest of their body has to really become stronger to help compensate for that. And you can see that in UFC fighters today, like Kamaru Usman is a perfect example. If you actually look at Kamaru Usman's physique, and if you look at his feet, he has really bad feet. They're really flat. The toes are really smushed together. He's got bunions, uh,
Okay.
and his calves really underdeveloped. But if you look at the definition of his quads and hamstrings, his hips, and his upper back and his chest, granted, who knows how he's obtaining his physique? That's another
Right.
discussion. That's a whole another can of worms to open up.
Right.
But but he's done a lifetime of wrestling, so he's had to develop all this extra muscle mass and tissue strength to make up for the lack of tires he has on his car.
Right.
And that seriously reduces your longevity. It reduces your speed, your fast twitch mechanisms, your hand-eye coordination. And it can really, I mean, Kamaru Usman also has really bad knees. Like, he says he
Okay.
can't even jog for a long period of time without getting knee pain. And a
Wow.
lot of that's because he's got really bad feet, and
Yeah.
your feet are the number one component that makes contact with the surface. It feeds information into your spine and into your brain where you're at in 3D space. And it's also your only points of contact to try to push kinetic energy from the floor into action. And that's why,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, you always hear that. Like, jujitsu is a little different because you can leverage someone else's body. And you have all these different points of contact, such as your back, your elbows, your knees.
Right.
But I would say,
Right.
in particular, for striking and MMA, because MMA always starts on your feet, uh, those are the one things that help you transfer kinetic energy. And you hear it in boxing. They always tell you, like, sit down in your punches. Like,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
what they should be saying is dig your feet in when you punch, like twist,
Okay.
like grind your feet into the ground. Or they always say power comes from your feet. And
Really?
this is something that the principle is understood and people believe in it, but hardly anyone does things to hypertrain your feet. So you see a lot of guys with weakness in their feet, or they really have to overtrain their hips, their
Okay.
legs, their back, their chest, their arms, to help compensate for this lack of foot strength.
Really?
And yeah, I think that's the number one thing that's killing martial artists' career and their longevity. Because if your feet are weak, then your ankles have to compensate. If your
Yep.
ankles, yeah, if your ankles compensate too much, then your knees have to compensate all that kinetic energy. And then if your knees are having trouble, then your hips and your lower back have to start overcompensating, and it can create a chain reaction all the way up to your neck, and you can even start getting neck injuries from it.
Oh man.
Well, I
So
should
so
say you can develop neck weakness, which would leave you susceptible to injuries.
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So what do you do? What's the first thing someone can do to, I know you can't write that prescription for everybody, and everybody's different. But what's the first thing you have someone do to check their feet strength?
Check the feet. Well, there's like three different types of feet in general. Of course, there's exceptions to the rule, but if we're trying to convey a message to millions of people, you have people who are flat foot, but they have a collapsed arch.
Okay.
You have people who are normal footed, which is like they have an arch, but it's not exactly flat, but it's not exactly high arched. And then you have high arched athletes, and that's actually when the structure of their bones and their foot is actually is arched like a bow, like from a bow and arrow.
Okay. Yeah.
And each types of these feet kind of have like a different sort of approach. If I were like work with an athlete, like a flat footed athlete, they're going to need to do a ton of modalities that will strengthen the arch. And we use different balancing and strengthening tools for that. Like one popular tool that we use is the slant board, which is
Okay.
like a little ramp that stands
Okay.
about like 3 to 4 inches high. It creates a slant. You put a little grip tape on that so your feet don't slide off, and you balance your whole body weight on one foot on your forefoot without the heel making contact with the board.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and a lot of people are scared to do it because people think they're going to sprain their ankle.
Yeah.
But like that, well, I'll kind of get into ankle sprains in a second. But when you do this, because it's a hard surface, it leverages the weight of your body into these different angles. Like we'll work the front, the back, the medial, the lateral. So that's the different sides of the ankle
Okay.
with this forefoot balance. And you can see a lot of this on my Instagram if people need a visual. And
Yeah.
that creates a strength training quality to the feet and helps restructure the density of the tissue. It gets the basically the electrical circuitry that travels from your feet into your spine, which
Yeah.
processes a lot of athletic movements. It hyper trains that myelin sheath, those nerve endings, and it really helps you reduce injury because now your foot has better placement. You can absorb kinetic energy a lot better. When you land on the ground and your ankle hits a weird position, because of that strength training, it'll know how to maintain a solid structure and not give out. And I'm a big believer in solid surface balance tools for performance.
Okay.
You'll see this a lot in the current rehab and fitness industry where majority of people are doing balance in shoes, which can create a lot of problems because the shoes literally creates a foreign contour to your
Okay.
foot, and your nerve endings don't get a ton of stimulation. They're basically reacting to the shoe more than they're reacting to the surface of whatever
Okay.
you're balancing on. And on top of that, the toes are being squished together in this shoe. So all the ability for your toes and tendons and ligaments to reach out and grab the ground and interact with your body to stabilize it, all that's getting shut off. So what
Okay.
you end up doing is and it's most of these balancing modalities are done on squishy surfaces, foam pads, Bosu balls, all these different types of, these other ones that looked like kind of like shaped like a half of a sphere with like
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
spikes on it. It's like made of
Yeah.
rubber. It's full of air. A lot of these are squishy surface balancing tools, and over time, the amount of variables your ankle has to adjust to the squishy surface can actually set you up for injury, and it
Okay.
doesn't really strengthen the foot. It could hyperactivate the tendons and muscles around the ankle, which
Okay.
is I do think is helpful for physical therapy. Like if someone has like Achilles tendonitis or bad ankle problems, post ankle surgery, sprained ankles, something along those lines, I will put them on squishy surface balancing for a period of time to get that blood flow really pushed into the foot and ankle complex, but it's not for very long. You
Okay.
want them on hard surface balancing tools because you need the strength quality. You don't just need the working of you don't just want to just stimulate the ankle to get it to burn. You want to prepare it for the types of stress stimuli that's going to show up in their sport.
Okay.
So that's where my philosophy really deviates from a lot of other training methodologies. So yeah, hyper training the foot. Oh, and the foot is the strongest limb on the entire body. Like imagine a crowbar, right?
Yeah.
If you visualize a crowbar, like you don't use the long end of the crowbar to open anything.
Right.
You want to use the short lever of the crowbar because you can create a ton of leverage off of that small little hook. Now your foot has a similar leverage mechanic to it. I mean, think about it. With just one foot, you can go flat on your foot all the way to your toe and lift your entire body weight up in like less than a second.
Yeah. I'm actually doing that right now.
Yeah.
Listening to you trying it.
Yeah. And what other limb can do that?
Wow. You never think about this kind of stuff. Holy cow.
Yeah.
You're right.
It's an extremely strong joint, like the foot and ankle complex. And so, like, yeah, foot strength is priority number one. Any guy that I'm working with, lower back issues, knee issues, okay, we got to fix your feet. Always want to start there because that's a lot of low hanging fruit and that fixes a lot of problems, or at least gets their movement to improve, because improper movement mechanics, overcompensation of muscle groups because of the feet, this is what could be causing a lot of chronic pain, injuries, tightness, that a lot of discomfort that can really shorten your martial arts career by a couple decades.
Okay. Now, do you recommend people, I've heard of grounding, I'm sure you know what that is, where you're outside walking on the grass and being connected to the earth and all that. Mm-hmm. Would you recommend someone go out and walk barefoot a lot?
Yeah, sure. You got to be careful because our environment is the environment's pretty unforgiving, and our feet are not very well conditioned, for the outdoors. Like whenever I go running, I usually run barefoot on grass.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because it feels better. Don't run barefoot on pavement. That's going to feel like shit. Your feet aren't conditioned for it. But yeah, running barefoot, if you want to walk on trails barefoot. The problem is that our feet are so soft and deconditioned that the nerve endings are usually very hypersensitive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you look at indigenous people, like people in South America or in different parts of Asia or Africa, if you look at people where modern shoes don't exist and they're still rocking old school barefoot Stone Age style, if you actually go on Google and look at their feet look like hands. They don't look like our feet. Like, I don't know if you can pull up an image for the podcast or even for yourself as I'm kind of talking about it. Pull up an image of indigenous people's feet and you'll see how different their feet are from ours.
Wow. Because they're just walking out there everywhere they go, no shoes, and everything's spreading out, and they're using their toes as fingers almost like that.
Yeah, well, and also because of the terrain, the variables of like the surface underneath them, like you got rocks, you got roots, you got imperfections in the ground. All of those imperfections like force the foot to adapt and overcome the environments, which adds like strength quality behind it. And yeah, your feet are supposed to look really wide, thick, tough, really thick, spread out toes. You should see all the tendons and ligaments like popping off the top of the feet. It should look like if you really stretch out your hand and tighten your hand, that's what your feet should look like. But if you look at modern people's feet, we got bunions, we got crimped up toes, we got baby soft foot pads. Our feet are very, very atrophied. And when you compare the two, you really can see like, oh, okay, this actually can, like, imagine you did this to your hands. Like, imagine you spent your whole life, 70% of your life with like snow gloves on.
Right.
hard rubbery snow gloves, and you take your hands out of them. Like if you saw someone with like really soft, weak hands because they're always in these gloves, like people would be like, "Oh my god, this can't be good for you." But
Right.
for some reason, with our feet, it's acceptable.
Wow. I'm looking at these feet now online. Oh my gosh, you're right.
Isn't it crazy?
That's crazy. Look like little fat hands with
Yeah.
feet wide. Oh my gosh. So that's how we're supposed to look, just wide and really strong. They look very strong. Holy cow.
Yeah, there's a group of fighters where you see feet more like this. If you ever watch the Thai fighters in Thailand,
Yeah.
they have feet like that because they're
I never looked
mostly
at their
wearing
feet.
sandals. They're mostly barefoot their whole lives.
Wow. I never looked at their feet. I watch a lot of Muay Thai. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, look at their feet. Like look at guys like Bull Cow or any high level Muay Thai fighter who's been doing this, especially since they were a kid.
Yeah.
They all got, I call them tribal feet. They all got the tribal feet look to it,
Wow.
And I also think like these guys, I don't think they have as many injuries as European or Western kickboxers do. At least soft tissue injuries.
Holy cow. So what made you start going down that rabbit hole with the feet? You know what I mean?
I've always trained balance. Like as I would try to cross train for MMA and Muay Thai, like I always did like the Bosu ball, I did the foam blocks, the squishy pads. Like I always thought balance was helpful.
Yeah.
Especially because and this has been an idea for martial arts since the ancient times. Like you see, like how many movies of Shaolin monks balancing on poles, and
Yeah, right.
it's like the Karate Kid. He's doing the crane kick. Like balance has always been a known modality
Yeah.
for training martial artists for thousands and thousands of years. But we've kind of lost sight of that during like the rise of fitness during
Mhm.
like the 70s and 80s, where we kind of veered away from some of these older ideas and focused on the iron.
Okay.
So I've always kind of intrinsically knew it was helpful. I wore Vibram toe shoes.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, I always thought like the feet were important. I thought it had a quality of health to it, but it wasn't until I listened to Nick Curson on the Joe Rogan Experience, episode 654, I believe. Great
Okay.
podcast. Definitely check it
I'm writing
out.
that down now. Episode, what did you say the number was?
654, I believe, is the episode.
54. All right, cool.
It's in the 650s. So if you scroll
Okay.
around on Spotify, you'll find it.
Okay.
And yeah, Nick Curson, he was a disciple of the great Marv Marinovich. And I knew about Marv Marinovich with his training camps at BJ Penn, back when BJ
Okay.
Penn was getting ready he fought Kenny Florian and
Yeah.
he fought Diego Sanchez. This is right after BJ Penn tried to get the belt at welterweight and lost against George St. Pierre for the second time.
Yeah. That
And
was a great fight, though.
he got outperformed. He ran out of gas and he threw in the towel. And I think BJ wanted to rectify this going back to lightweight. So
Okay.
he got a hold of the Marinoviches, and I remember BJ was doing these weird ass training methodologies. He's standing on slant boards and he was moving his feet on these weird pipes, and these
Yeah.
discs and doing all throwing this red machine with like an arm. He's like throwing this like arm around with his legs, doing this crazy ass training that I've never seen before. And I'm like, God damn, like that looks like I need some of that in my life. And I was a
Right.
big BJ Penn fan at the time. And when I saw BJ Penn fight Kenny Florian, BJ looked ripped. He looked strong,
Yeah.
muscular, he
Yeah.
was defined. He was fast, he was explosive. He's always been fast and explosive, but he was on another level. And his
Okay.
gas tank was just he had like a GSP gas tank for the first time in his career.
Oh,
And he
man.
just beat Kenny Florian's ass. And then after that, he did another training camp with the Marinoviches, looked at the training even more. I was like, there's that crazy shit again.
Yeah.
And he fought Diego Sanchez. And I will never forget how blown away I was watching BJ Penn dismantle the nightmare Diego Sanchez. And I was a big Diego Sanchez fan. I had a poster of him in my
Wow.
room when he fought Joe Daddy
Yeah.
Stevenson. Like Diego was a
Oh,
monster,
man.
super
Yeah.
scary.
He was.
Especially when,
He
yeah,
had no
Diego had
quit
a
in him.
Oh yeah, he had a run at 155 pounds, Diego,
Yeah.
where he won like 3 fights in a row. He fought Clay Guida, had an
Yep.
insane freaking back and forth fight.
That was a great fight. Holy
Insane,
cow.
classic fight. And then he had a phenomenal fight against Joe Daddy Stevenson.
Yeah.
And then they gave him a title shot against BJ. And I'm like, oh, damn, dude, this is it. Like, this is going to be a fight. Like, I'm friggin' pumped.
Right.
And I was also a bit of a strength and conditioning nerd at the time. Like, I was studying to get my training certification. And I knew Diego Sanchez was doing a training camp with Steve Maxwell, the kettlebell master.
Oh, yeah. I know the guy. Yeah. I know that guy.
And the great Steve Maxwell, and BJ Penn was doing a camp with the great Marv Marinovich. So it was like these two different philosophies they were using to get ready for this fight. And that's the beautiful thing about MMA, where you can literally conduct the same amount of testing that, like, say, a university does, and you can test the results in real time.
Okay.
So that's kind of the beautiful thing about MMA, why it's a good vehicle for new types of training methodologies to show off what they can do.
Right.
So the fight happened. BJ just absolutely can I swear on this podcast? Does it matter?
Yeah, knock yourself out. Talk normal, brother.
Yeah, dude. BJ just fucked up Diego, like really fucking bad.
I
Like,
remember that fight, man. That was an ugly fight.
Fucked him up. Like, he fucked him up in the first exchange, and it never stopped.
Yeah.
You know,
I think he shocked Diego. I think he really did. Surprised the crap out of him.
Yeah. And BJ was ready. I remember BJ said, like, you know, hey, I'm ready for a war. Like, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
Like, I've been doing some good shit, man. I'm ready.
Yeah. And he proved it, man.
Yeah, man. And I even had a phone call with Diego a couple months back. Where
Diego nice.
He was needing help. He knew about the nervous system training, and you know, he answered the phone and he's like, yeah, man, when I fought BJ, like, he was doing this nervous system training. That was the best version of BJ I've ever stepped foot in the octagon. I'm like, dude, I know. I remember.
Wow.
Like, I remember seeing it. I didn't want to say anything. I even made a video about it, and I was like, oh shit.
You don't say, you are right. You got killed.
Yeah. But
holy cow.
With all respect to Diego, phenomenal guy, great fighter, huge fan. Yeah. But it was, you know, BJ just was able to put on a phenomenal performance. And, you know, I remember the cut in Diego's forehead was just insane.
It was crazy.
And that after that, I was like, I don't know what BJ did, but whatever he was doing in that training camp, like, I need in my life. So after that, you know, I was coming off some losses in MMA myself, and I was searching for, like, better ideas to get me ready for another fight. Because I got knocked out really bad.
Oh.
And
who was it against, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh God, I don't remember his name. He ended up being a good fighter. He was like 9-1 as a pro, but he's a doctor now. He went to he fought for Eastern University MMA club. Nice guy. He was a tough fucker. Like, he kicked, he beat my ass. And and I was like searching for this training system. I was like, man, I need something better. Like, I did kettlebells, I did battle ropes, I did the whole Joe Rogan on it experience. I was swallowing Alpha Brain and taking shroom. Like, I was
it all.
Yeah, man, I was a part of that millennial movement with Joe Rogan during 2012 to 2016. Like, I was deep in it. And I was getting decent results. And I always knew that the more strength and conditioning I did, the better I felt in jiu-jitsu and in MMA. I just didn't know exactly how it was working for me.
Right.
So I tried to become a personal trainer. I got certified under a National Academy of Sports Medicine. Okay. And my goal was to, like, I was like, okay, I'm going to get this as the best certification everyone is telling me. It's a national certification. They got to have this training in there. So that was like my idea. I was going to learn this training, get certified, and I'm going to learn how to do this nervous system training and do it for myself for my next fight. And when I got my certification, or when I was going through the book studying, I couldn't find this nervous system training anywhere. Couldn't find it in any of the chapters. And I'm like, okay, like, maybe it's in the continued education, you know, maybe it's in their other you know, it's So, you know, as time goes on, you know, like, I'm still searching for it. I can't find it. And, you know, you're just and if you can't find something, you're going to just stick to what you know how to do.
Absolutely.
So I would still do the weightlifting, still, you know, bicep curl, pull-ups, squats, kettlebells, battle ropes, circuit training, all the fun stuff.
Yep.
And it wasn't until the Joe Rogan experience, to bring this all, like, full circle, it wasn't until Nick Curson who trained under Mark Marinovich, and Nick Kirsten was a part of BJ Penn's jiu-jitsu training camps back at RVCA or whatever that brand is,
Mm-hmm.
with who's that boxing coach? Perillo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Nick Kirsten would go over to Perillo's facility and help BJ Penn with his jiu-jitsu training, because Nick Kirsten was a black belt under Jean-Jacques Machado.
Yeah.
And that's when Nick Kirsten saw this Marinovich training system. He saw the super cats, and training with BJ, that's when it clicked for Nick. And Nick's like, holy shit, like, this is unbelievable. Like, I can't believe BJ is just destroying me, and he's moving so much faster than me. And he connected the dots, and Nick Kirsten kind of took it upon himself to learn this training methodology. And he worked with Marv, learned the system, worked a little bit with Sports Science Lab, learned the system. That's run by Gavin McMillan, who was Marv Marinovich's partner for a brief period of time.
Okay.
And yeah, Nick Kirsten, he trained Rafael dos Anjos. For a long time in this system. And Rafael dos Anjos went from like a top 15 fighter, coming off of like a really bad knockout by Ayala Quinta, I think. And RDA, he same sort of pursuit, did the training system. He did it for like 2 or 3 days, and he's like, "Oh my god, I can already feel a difference."
Really, that quick?
Yeah, that quick. So first 72 hours, you'll start noticing an improvement in your fighting easily.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
okay.
It comes on very fast because a lot of it's neurological, and the neurological components of the nervous system is what actually controls the smoothness and the quality of your movements. And that's why some guys just move better than other guys in class.
Okay.
We call them talented, but they're not talented. They have a more advanced nervous system. So their biomechanics and their ability to figure out movement is at a higher quality. It's to shorten that term up, but yeah, so RDA was doing the training, and RDA went from a really bad knockout. He was like ranked like maybe top 10, top 15 lightweights at the time. He's an okay fighter.
Mm-hmm.
RDA was a good fighter, but he always was kind of like just above average, kind of gatekeeper level. And then RDA started getting, wins, one win after another. He took out Donald Cerrone, then he took out Nate Diaz, and then he took out Ben Henderson, and he was just like, just fucking guys up.
Climbing through it.
Yeah, he was just carving through it, and he was looking better every time. He was looking stronger and faster and more athletic and just sharper. Like it's almost like he improved like what would usually take like a guy 3 years. He did it in like 5 months.
Holy cow. Wow.
And
now, do you think real quick, do you think that that progress was because he was already a great athlete, or that's a normal thing to see in that speed of time for the new training?
Well, at his level, there's a lot of variables. Like he was already first you got to be a really hard worker because the training's not easy.
Yeah.
There's no substitute for hard work. Like you definitely have to be a hard worker, but he's already a decent athlete. He's a pretty good fighter. Like he had a really good foundation when he started. But adding this training to it just like really just launched him to another level.
Okay.
And you'll see that with guys. Like if a fighter's good, they have a good work ethic, they trust you, they do this training, they will become great. I think when I was working with an MMA gym in my local town, they hired me to do the performance training for their fighters, and they were coming off of like a lot of losses in 2017. Like they were consistently losing, not by much, but by enough, because they're mostly they're jiu-jitsu specialists, and people were starting to figure them out, and they were starting to get tired in third rounds. They were starting to losing to striking. Guys were getting knocked out. And when I started taking over the performance training with some of the higher level guys and running classes, I started doing that around January of 2018. And for like 4 months, no one lost a fight. We were like, we were like 8-0. Like everyone got better. Everyone was improving. Everyone's cardio was getting better. Everyone's striking was improving, their speed, their strength. And that's pretty normal. Like even with the guys, like I work with some pro fighters in my program right now.
Yeah.
I think I would say, I don't know how to put a percentage on it, but I'm a little surprised if they lose. Of course it's a fight, fights happen,
Anything can
Like,
happen. Yeah.
yeah, anything can happen. You can get knocked out even when you're winning.
Yeah.
So, I don't, but generally I would say about like 80% of the time, my guys are winning fights.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Jeez. So, I mean, your phone needs to be blowing up, I would hope, with all the MMA guys out there trying to stay in the UFC and all these other pride and everything else, man.
You would think,
Yeah.
you would think, so, well, that's part of the reason, I'll be like totally transparent. That's part of the reason I don't really seek after fighters.
Mhm.
And I'm saying this from the perspective of being a fighter myself.
Gotcha.
My best friends were fighters. I lived a life. I would spend weekends at the gym, sleeping at dorms,
Yeah.
living off of like fast food, like watching The Ultimate Fighter, being
Yeah.
semi-homeless, helping guys getting ready for fights. Like I lived the life.
Yeah.
And a lot of fighters, especially at the amateur level, are horrible clients.
Mm.
And if you talk, and this is something that's not often talked about, and I don't want to come off as a hater or throw shade, but
Yeah.
it's just kind of the nature of things. And I've talked about with other coaches, especially some of the older guys, where it's it can be very difficult helping a fighter, because fighting's a very difficult sport. It's a very emotionally taxing on the mind.
Yeah.
And you have to be a little off as a
Okay.
person to even want to do it.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
Even for myself, like I know, like I'm not all the way there. Like I have, so I like, and so in a way, I'm kind of describing myself. Like I would hate to have trained myself when I was in my 20s.
That makes sense.
Thinking that you know it all,
Mhm.
like lack of accountability, overly emotional, very
Yeah.
chaotic, not staying disciplined,
Yeah.
trying to, it just is what it is,
Yeah.
like it's, and I think that's not just fighters. That could just be young guys in general, like young men in general, sometimes can be difficult to coach.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I think it is a lot of the fighters. Being in that environment, I think with the youth, we all were young and we thought our youth cured everything, so we didn't really have to listen as much. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And a lot of guys, a lot of guys don't get in the sport because they want to be successful. I think a lot of guys get in the sport because they just want to fight. They
Could
want
be.
to,
Yeah.
they want to have a fight. Because if you ask them, like when you start to talk to high level coaches, like guys who are at American Top Team, guys who are at Mike
Oh yeah.
Winkelshon, and you, like, if you were to approach like your run of the mill amateur fighter and they were to tell them like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do this, you got to be willing to sacrifice this, you got to be willing to pay this amount of money per month, you got to, like, are you willing to sacrifice all those things to maybe have a average career?
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10, they're going to say no.
Right. Right.
They just want to fight. They want to train hard. They want to feel strong. They want the experience, which is okay. I wanted that. I didn't want to be champion. I just wanted to fight. I just wanted to have a good fight, and to learn some good skills and feel like a badass.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's why I mostly work with the older guys, because the older guys, they need help. Generally they're more mature. They're more coachable. We make a ton of progress in the programs. A lot of their bodies are just beat up from years and years of jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, and you're inevitably going to break down. Like doing martial arts at a fast level, at a fast pace, is like you can only do it for about 2/3 of your life.
Yeah, and the rest is done. You're absolutely right, brother.
And it really breaks down. So yeah, I love helping the older guys, man. Like, because the results come really fast with them. Like within the first week or two, they start their back pain starts to go away. Their foot pain starts to go away.
That's good stuff, man.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man! So when you get a new client, you run them through these because I know you sent me over a video to try some of these movements you were talking about with the Bosu ball, not the Bosu ball, with the rubber ball. And so I went to my gym. I tried some. My gosh, is that the first thing you put all your guys through?
Yeah, that's the easy stuff.
Oh, brother, I was on that ball. I couldn't believe how hard I was sweating.
Oh,
I was like, geez, Louise. I was like, okay, but I told him I'm going to do this. I'm going to finish it. It took me forever to finish it, but my gosh.
Yeah,
man.
It's hard. Well, it's because your central nervous system is being hyperstimulated.
Okay.
That's why these movements are making you sweat so much, because like your endocrine system is firing up, your brainstem is firing up, your spine is hyperactive. Like all these
Yeah.
areas, because it's all electricity in your body. Like all
Right.
strength is just electricity. And when you're hyperstimulating those circuits, especially in muscle groups, like you probably noticed that, like as you were doing it, some exercises were like, okay, I got this, and some exercises like, oh my god,
Yeah.
like
I
yeah,
thought I'm doing these things and I'm literally thinking, I can do this. I pull up your video again. I can do this. I couldn't do it to save my life, but I still finished him though. It was insane.
yeah. So that's because a lot of times, like your muscles don't know how to communicate with each other in a synergistic fashion, and that's everything that martial arts requires, is all your
Yeah.
muscles working together. And you'll see this with some guys, like we call them prodigies and we call them phenoms. Like there's always that
Okay.
jujitsu kid that can figure everything out really fast.
That was a
You know,
BJ. That was
yeah,
him at the time.
like,
Yeah.
but really their nervous system can communicate with their muscular system at a
Yeah.
fast level.
Yeah.
And they can learn things faster than everyone else. They can figure out moves faster than everyone else. They're less injured. They compete better, and everyone just calls them talented. But it's a lot of it is their feet, and a lot of it is the capabilities of their central nervous system, and most of it's genetic. But
Okay.
everyone, if you work hard enough, everyone could develop BJ level talent
Okay.
with this training system. What you do with it in your performance is another question. It's up to you to make it happen. But
Right.
this training can give you the tools to give you BJ Penn like abilities.
Wow. And the video you sent with the testing my movements, that's the beginner stuff.
Yeah, that's the first phase. Now I have my own take on the training,
Yeah.
just based on what I've learned over the years and what kind of works best in an online training platform,
Yeah.
where you have like three phases. Like the first phase is fix the feet and fix the neuromuscular control. And we do that with the balance training and the ball work training methodology. And I'll have
Okay.
guys do that first phase. It depends on the guy. Like some people need to go straight into physical therapy because they have like spine damage or they're
Yeah.
coming off of surgery or something like that. But
Yeah.
generally speaking, say it's a fighter, like your average pro fighter, footwork and ball work training. He's going to do that hard for like 2 weeks because he needs to redevelop elastic qualities in his muscle and in his tendons. And the ball work training has like a physical therapy response to the body by itself.
Okay.
Like it trains flexibility, mobility. It enhances. It has physical therapy kind of built into the methodology, and it creates, and it builds fast twitch and stamina. Like you're covering
Okay.
a lot of things all at once, and it's
Wow.
very functional. Like to me, that's actual functional training over like the usual clubs and kettlebells and things like that. And
Just using that ball.
yeah, just using the ball. It's using the ball instead of ankle weights and
Okay.
some water bells. If you don't have water bells, you can use ankle weights around your hands for the upper body ball work. It works pretty good.
Yeah.
And once their muscle elasticity is redeveloped, a lot of their chronic pain injuries are getting healed. And basically, what we're trying to do is get the body back into what's called equilibrium.
Okay.
And this was an idea that was started by Dr. Edith Hughes, who's a fascial expert and a good friend of mine.
Okay.
She invented the ball work and the balance training system and taught that to Marv. And Marv combined it with his Soviet sports performance training ideas, and it's become what it is now. And but yeah, Dr. Edith, she had this breakthrough in her training methodology where there's a balance between posterior muscles and anterior muscles, between the secondaries and the primaries.
Okay.
And if those muscles are not communicating well, if the primaries are overdeveloped and the secondaries are severely underdeveloped, or the antagonist protagonist muscles are not developed together properly, that throws your muscle groups out of equilibrium, and
Okay.
it can set you up for injury. You can't absorb energy well, you can't recover from falls, you can't move very fluidly. And that's why you'll see some guys like in Muay Thai class or jiu-jitsu, some guys who do a lot of bodybuilding, they
Yeah.
kind of move like shit. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
they're very stiff, they're very bulky, they're not fluid, they're not smooth, they can't snap their strikes very well. It's because their tendons and ligaments are very tight. There's no more elasticity. Everything's kind of been turned into like a rock.
Okay.
And their chain of muscles is all out of balance because they've done so much isolated strength training. So that like
Gotcha.
that fragments muscle groups and takes away from fluidity.
Okay. When you have new clients come in, do you also work with them on the nutrition program? Does that help that also? Because what you're putting in, does that help all the things going on with the body also with the
Oh
nervous
yeah.
system?
Yeah, like so nutrition is a new skill that I've developed since I went online because some people are looking for weight loss.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, sure. And I always knew like when you go online, like you got to look good for people to at least pay attention to what you're doing. Like it
Yep.
helps a lot.
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, let me, because I was never really good at nutrition. I always passed it off to other guys that were I was friends with that were specialists. But when applications on your phone started to become really accessible, like
Yeah.
Carb Manager or MyFitnessPal, where they can calculate your macronutrients per day, your caloric intake, your net carb, things along those lines.
Yeah.
Didn't have to do like the math by hand anymore, like on fucking
Yep.
paper, which was
Yep.
I didn't want to learn that. So when I discovered these apps, I was like, oh shit, this can do it all for you. And I really got good at tracking my food, tracking my macronutrients, and yeah, it really when you track your macros, you can really speed up your improvements because a lot of guys get injured because I think there's an overemphasis in protein in
Okay.
athletic diets right now, especially in
Yeah.
the large
Yeah.
community. Everyone wants protein,
Yeah.
and nobody wants enough. Nobody's eating enough carbohydrates, in my opinion. And so
Okay.
carbohydrates literally give you the energy cache to withstand energy and to perform muscle action.
Hmm.
Especially at a very explosive level.
Right.
And if you're limited on those carbohydrates, you only have so much energy cache for your tissue. And when you start to run out of that, like the tissue can't maintain like a stiff structure. It'll start to break apart and can
Okay.
lead to like tendinitises, can lead to tissue tears, muscle strains. Uh, I've seen it with like ankle sprains and stuff. Guys who are very low on carbs are always running out of energy. Because you ever felt that? You ever tried to sprint? And then like after a while, like your body starts turning into rubber, and you feel
Oh
like
yeah.
you feel like
Oh
you have
yeah.
to stop or something's going to break
Yeah. Yeah. You
because you're losing ATP.
go to that panic walk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and so your muscles can't maintain the forces anymore. So it'll start. So lactic acid produces as a byproduct of expending that ATP, and as a safety mechanism, this evolutionary process built in. That lactic acid buildup will send a signal to your body in the form of burning, and that burning
Okay.
is a warning that you have to stop activity or this tissue is going to start falling apart.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So what type of carbs are you talking about? I know we're not talking about chips and stuff, which I like to eat for my boosting. No, I'm just
Yeah.
joking. What
Well,
kind of
well,
carbs are you
honestly,
talking about?
any form of carbohydrates works. You just got to think about there's pros and cons to different type of carbs. Like you got high glycemic carbs, you got low glycemic carbs. Carbs that
Mhm.
are high in the glycemic index tend to create more systemic inflammation in the body.
Okay.
So, and your insulin will spike higher, which can make you feel tired. It creates more inflammation, making you feel more discomfort, slows
Hmm.
down recovery. Not everyone, but some people are very susceptible to that. So you
Okay.
always want to pick like a complex carbohydrate that's low in the glycemic index.
Okay.
I always tell people, you can never eat enough sweet potatoes and
Yeah.
carb load. Like
Okay.
get your glucose, get your carbohydrates in your body an hour before your training session. So you have plenty of energy to use and you're not tapping in. Because if you eat too much protein, what you do is you start conditioning your liver to want to metabolize just protein. And when that process starts to happen, if you're running out of carbs, you're running out of blood sugar, your body's going to start taking energy from what it knows how to metabolize best. And if you're always loading it with protein, it's going to start burning your protein. And
Mm.
it's called glyconeogenesis. And
Okay.
you'll start burning down your own muscle tissue. And I think that's why some guys get injured a lot in camp, especially during the weight cut process,
Okay.
where they're not balancing out their carbohydrates properly. They're not timing their sparring rounds properly. They're not organizing their training camp. And their body starts to break down. Their tissue starts to weaken. and it
Okay.
makes them more susceptible to injuries. And I think that's the reason why so many fighters get injured at the last part of the training camp instead of the beginning part, which, if you think about it, you should be getting injured more when the training intensity is at the highest volume, which is in the
Okay.
beginning of camp. But guys are getting injured more towards the end of camp. And I think their diet and wake up process is a big contributor to that.
Okay. That makes sense. So you're talking about you just have a great balance of protein and carbohydrates in the diet instead of going all, was this in a carnivore now, or they have the other ones, a vegan and all that stuff. It's such a wide range of diets out there, though.
Yeah. Well, so always think about this. There's no good or bad diet. There's only a diet for what your goal is.
Okay.
Like, your body is super adaptable. Like, we can adapt to anything. Like, we have some people who literally just live off like cow fat and rice and goat's
Wow.
milk in Africa,
Okay.
and like the Maasai people are still jumping higher than most basketball players.
Oh yeah, those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, so our bodies are very adaptable. Like, from an evolutionary perspective, we can eat just about anything. We can eat
Okay.
fruits, we can eat bugs, we can eat protein, we can eat vegetables. We can take in a lot of different forms of nourishment, but you
Hmm.
always want to base your diet on what your goal is. So if your goal is to be a high anaerobic athlete where a lot of explosive energy is the main mechanism of your sport, you want to have a diet that's going to support that.
Okay.
It's when people choose a diet that doesn't support that, like I follow a ketogenic diet because I have food allergies to like grain and
Okay.
flour. Like, it creates a
Gotcha.
lot of issues with me, a lot of systemic inflammation issues, and diabetes runs in my family. So I kind of want to avoid that as much as possible.
Okay.
So I take in carbs at a moderate level, but they're always very low glycemic carbs that don't take me out of ketosis, that don't spike my insulin too high. Now, I
Okay.
can't do MMA very well ketogenically because I just can't take in that many carbs. Like,
Okay.
yeah, so that works against my goal. So when I went keto and I did MMA, I was getting injured all the time. I was getting gassed out all the time because the diet just didn't support my goals. So I kind
Oh
of
wow.
learned that the hard way. But like I said, like, if you're a boxer, you might be able to get away with it because it's
Yeah.
mostly an aerobic based diet.
Okay.
It pushes your metabolism towards oxygenative burn, and
Okay.
boxing is 80% aerobic, 20% anaerobic. So you might be able to get away with it. Still don't recommend it.
Okay.
But if you're a competitor, you want carbohydrates, a lot of them, and you want to eat a good amount before training sessions. Even I recommend fighters get on carbohydrate powder, something
Okay.
that's very bioavailable. They can mix with their shakes or with their Gatorade, and it gets instant glucose into the blood. So they have plenty of blood sugar, plenty of ATP ready to be expended, and it doesn't get synthesized into body fat at a later time. And that can really mess up their weight cut.
Do you have any brand that you recommend at all?
No, I'm not big into brands, honestly. I just grab
Okay.
whatever says what, like carbohydrate powder. I'm like, all right, good.
Okay.
Like, I
Gotcha.
don't know, like, over the years, and especially when you start doing the nervous system training, small stuff like picking certain brands or monohydrate or polyhydrate, a creatine, and a lot of that stuff I kind of realized doesn't make that big of a difference. Doesn't really push the needle forward that much.
Okay. Because now this biggest thing I see now is I guess biggest thing I see is people talking about creatine all the time now. What's your thoughts on creatine?
Creatine's great.
Okay.
Creatine, if you're an athlete or if you're doing jujitsu at least 2 to 3 times a week, like, take creatine. Like, it's only going to help you. It's only going to. Some people it kind of bothers their stomach. Some people, like, are maybe genetically can't metabolize creatine very well. So
Hmm.
you got to kind of find that out for yourself. But no, creatine gives you more molecular building blocks to create more ATP in the muscle.
Okay.
Yeah, so get on creatine if you're doing jujitsu or Muay Thai on a regular basis.
Okay, that's pretty cool because the studies show that's the most, what does it say, studied supplement out there now.
Oh yeah,
They did
This-
all the
yeah,
most research and
yeah. If there's a new creatine study, that's a new grad school. That's a new person who just graduated from grad school in sports science.
okay, gotcha. Now, when someone's injured and they come to you, like say, especially people, because you work with a lot of old people, older. I hate saying old, but vintaged, more experienced people, and they have these injuries. And most people I find in my age group, it's either back, shoulders, or knees, right?
Yeah.
So, what do you have them do when they first? Do you go through that ball test with them? I know we talked about that a little bit, or
Yeah.
you just do like, can you stick your arm out? Can you bend over, touch your toes, and all that stuff?
Yeah. So if they're in person, I have a lot of like different athletic assessments I can do to try to pinpoint where what's causing the dysfunction.
Okay.
But because I train strictly online now, a lot of the times there's a little bit of guesswork. Like if they have a major injury, like something's really going wrong, uh, with their knee or a tendonitis, like the first thing they're going to do, I'm going to put them on the ball work to see if it's doable.
Okay.
And the ball work will kind of reveal any dysfunctions, or it'll kind of give me an idea, like, okay, his body's not ready to do ball work, like the tendon damage or whatever they're going through is a little too severe.
Okay.
So we'll probably go through like a physical therapy process, and I got a bunch of different protocols that I've learned over the years working with a bunch of physical therapists in my local community
Okay.
that have kind of mentored me over the past 10 years on how to fix knees, how to fix shoulders, and a lot of stuff I've just researched trying to fix my own body.
Okay.
I have a lot of had my shoulder issues, had my neck, lower back issues, knee issues, and I've kind of just figured out what works, what doesn't work, and really just, the old Bruce Lee philosophy, like take what works really well, remove what doesn't really give good
Yeah.
results. And I just isolated those into very specific protocols that I built out.
Okay. That makes sense. Now, do most of your clients that come to you, especially in the older group, are they? And I'm asking these questions because I know people are like this, and I'm going to really push them towards what you're doing. That they're just overweight. You know what I mean? Is it one of those things where you need to lose some weight before we start all this stuff, or whatever?
Yeah, it depends. It depends. If I have a client that's overweight, he's a little heavier than he needs to. I'm gonna definitely tell him like, hey man, we got to get like some of this, like, if you're like 5'8", and you're 220 pounds, but we got to get your weight down, like,
Yeah.
because we're gonna get jumper's knee. That's gonna be a lot of impact on the body. Especially if you're in your 40s. So yeah, I do highly recommend that they lose the weight. But that's kind of on them. Like, I can only hold them to the accountability. They have to put in the action.
Right. Right.
If the weight's not coming down, if they're not sticking with it, like everyone's got their own disciplines, everyone's got their own standards they put on themselves.
Yeah.
I'll probably limit their plyometric training,
Okay.
to what is sustainable, what matched what capacity they do have based on the feedback that they give me.
Okay. So basically, you work with anyone, from healthy, high function athlete to the guy just on the couch.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good, man. Now, on that, real quick, do you recommend a lot of running, or do you rather walk than run? Is better?
Is this for weight loss?
Yeah, for weight loss. Say weight loss. Yeah.
That depends. That depends on like the person's goals.
Okay.
Everything always goes back to the goals. There's no one answer for anything. Like, so if their goal is like, hey, I need to lose weight and I need to get better for jiu-jitsu and I need to get my lower back fixed, I'm like, okay, running is probably not going to be the most effective modality that would put them on, because running it's a lot of impact. It's kind of slow twitch. Your weak muscle groups or overcompensated muscle groups are going to get very fatigued and worn out with running. So I'll probably have them do like the row machine or the elliptical or the ski machine, or I'll give them like a general cardio workout. Like, hey, pick a cardio machine, 45 minutes, figure out what their VO2 max is, figure out what their fat burning zone is. But okay, you got 45 minutes. This has to be your heart rate. Don't get off until you hit your goal. Don't let your heart rate get much higher. Don't let it get much lower. Keep it at this fat burning zone. And monitor your diet. And I'll have them send screenshots of their macros. Make sure that they're staying on track. Maintain the accountability. I would say my number one modality for cardio, weight loss, any form of cardio is the row machine, the Concept 2 row machine.
Okay.
Because you can do so much with that row machine. It's like a full encompassing kinetic, like body training machine. Like it works everything, even the neck muscles. So
Wow.
Yeah, you could do it at a very intense pace for cardio development, strength endurance development, or you can do it at a very slow pace for weight loss. You know,
Okay.
and it's I've noticed it delivers better results than just say running or walking. Now,
Okay.
if they don't have access to that, my second go to would be like, hey, jump on the elliptical. You know, let's try that. Let's keep the impact lower because a lot of these guys might not have conditioned ankles or knees for long distance running. Because
Yeah.
running can be very destructive if your body's not ready for it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and just focus on the heart rate. You know, focus on keeping that heart rate at fat burning zone. You know, make sure that they hit their time, even though it's really boring. You know, I tell them like, hey, get a podcast ready, get a TV show ready, get a playlist, you know, whatever you have to do, but stay on that machine for 45 minutes, fat boy, until you hit your calories.
Gotcha. That's pretty cool though, man. But is it simple as, losing weight as simple as calories in, calories out? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Basically, that breaks it down to that. It breaks it down
Yeah,
to that.
yeah, 100%. So yeah,
Okay.
the secret to weight loss, you always stick to the laws of thermodynamics. Like we all
Okay.
learned this in middle school. Like calories in, calories out. If you're taking in, like the average human being needs about 2,000 calories to sustain their metabolic base or whatever
Mhm.
that word is. I can't remember. Uh yeah. And if you go into calorie deficit uh over a period of time, so let's say like 7 days out of the week, you're burning you're taking in like 1,500 calories, right?
Right.
And let's say you do some training, so you're burning an additional 500 calories. So now you're at a 1,000 calorie deficit for the
Right.
day. Now it takes, I think it's like 3,500 calories equals 1 pound of body fat,
Yeah.
I believe, somewhere
Yep.
around there. I might have my approximations off. So if you track everything, so if you're burning like 1,000 calories a day, you know, you're taking in 500, you're burning 500. You keep that up 7 days a week, you should lose about 1.5 pounds per week.
And that's an easy and healthy way to do it. Correct.
Well,
That number. That
so here,
number.
yeah. So here's the thing. Here's where like nutrition and supplementation showed up in the market. Is that at calorie deficit, like you can lose weight just eating pizza as long as you stay within your caloric allowance.
Right.
But your macronutrients are going to be severely off. Your fats are going to be too low or too high. Your carbs are going to be too low or too high, and your proteins. And
Okay.
that's going to make you feel like shit.
Yeah.
So eating clean or eating healthy is really about making sure your macronutrients are balanced for what your goal is, and that you're keeping the inflammation low so you're not taxing your body or you're not feeling shitty in the process. And that's
Okay.
really the whole eating clean idea. It's all about your macros. So hitting your macros, maintaining low inflammatory foods, and hitting your calorie deficit, you'll lose weight. The hard part is making sure you maintain that 7 days in a row. Because what
Okay.
happens, and this even happens to me, like it's easy to fall off. Like let's say you're at 1,500 calories per day, right? You
Yep.
know, and like let's say you burn 500 calories with your training, right? You do good Monday, you do good Wednesday, you know, Tuesday you do good Wednesday. You're 3 days in a row, right? Making
Right.
progress, feeling a little thinner. You know, you're losing weight, you're feeling a little lighter on your feet, and then something happens like with the baby, or your wife yells at you, or something happens in life that throws you off, and you only burned like 250 calories that day. Then the
Right.
next day, okay, I only got 300, right? And I'm at a 500 caloric deficit, but I didn't quite hit my macros perfectly. I went over my calorie. I got to like, I actually ate 2,000 calories because it was my kid's birthday or something like that, or the boss took me out, I had a beer, you know something
Yeah.
like that. So now you're back up. So now all like the past 3 days of progress is getting fucked up because now you're back at calorie surplus. So
Oh.
at the end of the week, you could very well break even, and
Okay.
you got no
Okay.
weight loss. And that's what everyone is doing.
Yeah. I get it. I get it. Okay. Yeah, because I know I do that too when I'm working out and I have a great workout and I get like 5 days and I do that, which I know I shouldn't. I do that the weekend. I need to reward myself for doing so great.
Yeah.
You
And
know.
then you go, because eating 3,000 calories, like is easy. Like you
Oh,
can,
easy.
no problem. Can you throw in an additional? So let's say you do good, like 5 days in a row, Monday through Friday, you kill it, right? You can feel the weight loss coming off. You're about 0.8 of a pound, of weight loss,
Yeah.
we're doing good. We're saying no to pizza. We're not overloading our calories. I'm tracking everything, my water, everything's on point. And then Sunday comes around and, it's like, hey, like I did good this week. Like, let's celebrate with like a nice fucking Red Robin cheeseburger or something like that.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
eat these potato, like, these French fries that are high in glycemic index, loaded with calories. And now you went up to like 4,000 calories that one day.
Yeah.
You just blew 3 days of progress with that
Wow.
one meal. And so if you do the math, now instead of losing a full pound of body weight, you lost about half a pound at the
Yeah.
end of the week. Like it's just math.
Oh man. But everyone lives in that reward zone. Oh
Yeah.
man. Oh, and how bad is liquor for your body? And I hear that 'cause, I like my bourbon, so
Yeah, if you want to fast track your lack of progress, definitely drink.
okay. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Because that does so many things wrong for weight loss.
Oh
And
man.
like it literally shuts down your ability to burn fat because your body has to metabolize all this alcohol.
Really?
It's inflammatory. It messes with your reward system, like your dopamine, your serotonin gets all thrown off because it substitute your serotonin. That's why you feel happy and fun when you're drunk.
Yeah.
It substitutes your endorphins, so your neurochemistry is all thrown out of whack, and it's addictive. So you got to be careful how it's playing into your reward mechanisms,
Yeah.
and it's loaded with calories. Yeah, man, drinking is. I always tell people after the age of 32, like stop drinking. Have
Damn.
like yeah, yeah, stop drinking because it's the long-term side effects will compound.
Yeah.
Even if you just have a beer day, if you were to add it up, that's like 28 to 30 beers in a month. If you have you
Oh
ever
yeah.
seen what 30 beers looks like in front of you?
Oh yeah. I've seen the cases. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
like it compounds. It compounds and compounds onto itself, and and really the trick is that I've learned is you have to have an objective, like you got to have a deadline,
Okay.
and you got to have an incentive to hit that deadline. Some people so that's why I honestly, if you really need to lose weight, pay money.
Ah, I see what you mean. You don't want to lose that money.
Yeah, man, you don't want to lose that investment. You don't. And
Yeah.
and that's why, and most people need weight loss. I tell them like, hey man, you're never going to do this unless you have some skin in the game. Like
Yeah.
you got to have that fear of losing out on your investment. That will motivate you to get the fuck up and go get the work done and
Yeah.
track your calories because you just put down $1,000.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, but
It's a crazy that is, man. We instead of wanting to live longer, live a healthier life, we don't do it for that. We do it for we don't want to lose the money.
yeah, well that's how we evolved as human beings. Like
Yeah.
like being consciously aware of our health is not a survival mechanism.
Oh
Like that
man.
is not our survival mechanisms are based on instant gratification, what I can get right now and what can
Yeah.
make me feel better from the hardships of life.
Exactly.
You
You're right
know,
on the money. Yep.
yeah, because for thousands of years, majority of the human race starved to death or died of malaria. Like those are
Hmm.
the two main killers of the human race. So for us to take in calories whenever we can we're designed to build body fat. Like
Wow.
it's our last defense mechanism from starvation. The majority of human beings starved in the past 2 million years of evolution. Even today, like a lot of deer, that we hunt, a
Hmm.
majority of deer starve to death or they freeze in
Really?
winter. Yeah, it's hard
Oh
to
wow.
find food when you don't have refrigerators.
Yeah. Yeah. True. That's true. But you think animals and deers know where to get it all? You know what I mean? Jeez.
Yeah,
That's
you would think you would think, but a majority of animals survive because we feed them.
wow.
Like raccoons, skunks, deer, birds,
Yeah. I guess you're
squirrels.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Never thought
provide
about
a
that.
lot of the foods, and we provide, like bird feeders and like grain feeders and garbage,
Yeah.
trash cans. Which majority of our, pigeons are entirely symbiotically dependent on us.
Yeah.
in cities. Like, they don't find food off of trees. They eat the garbage.
Wow. That is so. I never think about that stuff, though. Holy
Yeah, I know. You
cow.
never think about this?
No, I don't ever think about those. Holy cow. And you're right. Once you sit there and think about this stuff, you're right. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, man. Thought about a
Oh,
lot of things over the years. I don't know why.
probably getting punched in the head a lot, right?
Yeah. Well, you always want to. I always have a thing where, so when I look at things, I usually look at patterns. I don't really take it at face value. I
Okay.
always look at it as like, okay, why is this happening, and how does this keep happening?
Hmm.
I developed this train of thought when I was like helping athletes. Like, okay, why are they getting injured, and how is this like a reoccurrence? Like, what are the common patterns that you keep seeing over and over again? And I don't know. I've kind of just taken that philosophy, and that's how I look at everything now.
That's pretty cool, though. Every mind works different. That's pretty unique, but that's gotten you where you are today, right? With the knowledge you've accumulated, and you're helping so many people with that stuff. That's
Yeah.
dang good. Brother, I tell you, I appreciate you doing this. This has been awesome. You should see my notepad. I always say that on a podcast, but I write so much stuff down from interesting podcasters, man. You're interesting guests. I mean, you have
Thanks.
gotten 2 pages here today, so that's a record. No,
Yeah,
but
man.
man, hey, brother, before we get you out of here, tell us everything or everywhere we can find you. These guys can reach you on your social media, your phone numbers, your YouTubes, whatever. What do you got? Where can they find you?
Yeah. So my YouTube's not really that functional. Like, you go Coach Quintin on YouTube, but there's not a lot of content in there. That's another
Okay.
space I need to tackle in the future. But if you need to get a hold of me, you need help, you want to look into programming, anything along those lines, find me on Instagram at Quintin.Torres36, all lowercase. I put a lot of the training methodology, on Instagram. I try to get as much free value out there as possible to help people out. I'm in the DMs all the time, answering questions, trying to help people, setting up phone calls. So don't be afraid to reach out. Like, I'll do everything I can to help you from my position. And I always tell people, like, if you really need help, man, do the program. Like, the program, I'm fairly priced. It doesn't cost 10 grand or 30 grand. It's not like
Yeah.
some crazy expensive price. I try to make it. I firmly believe that this training for the longest time was only available for like the super elite athletes that can afford
Mm.
to pay like $4,000 a week for
Wow.
like this type of training. But my goal is, like, I believe everyone deserves the right to have access to this training, at an affordable price, at a very reasonable price.
Yeah.
And the more guys I can help, the better we can make martial arts as a whole, and the better we can make human performance. Because I firmly believe, I've done a lot of systems. I've done just about everything you can think of as far as training systems. When I landed on this, nothing has worked better in my life or for my clients at the speed of which it helps you than nervous system training. Like this, I
Wow.
honestly believe that this is the future of not just human performance, but I believe this is the most optimal system when it comes to overall human health and functionality of their own body. So I
Wow.
always tell people, at least go on my Instagram, give it a try. If you do the program with me, you will not be sorry. It will absolutely change your life. And you could always look at my testimonials on my Instagram. Like we've been able to duplicate results for people over and over and over again. The
That's cool.
system is just it's just a phenomenal system, and it can give you a ton of benefit and longevity.
That's cool, man. I appreciate you putting all that out there. And guys, listen up. Like he said, check out his Instagram, because that's how I found him, just by seeing one of his cool videos. I was like, that looks interesting. I need to talk to this guy. But man, I'm telling you, I appreciate you more than you know. You've been very helpful to me today. I'm telling you, I got to go down and try to talk myself out of a bourbon.
Yeah, man. Hey, if you need more help, man, we could always get you signed up, man.
I got you, my friend. I will be in touch, brother. But I appreciate you, man. You take care of yourself out there. We'll be in touch.
All right, Tony. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, brother. Take care. Bye-bye.
Oh, man.